Your players have rolled their level 1 characters, the excitement in the room is palpable. But where do you start? And where will you end up? Hi, I'm BECMI Berserker and welcome back to my channel. This is where we discuss all things BECMI, which is, in my opinion, the greatest version of Dungeons and Dragons ever published. There's a link on the screen and in the description if you want to know more. As you may or may not know, the BECMI edition was supported by a multitude of adventure modules, supporting play up to a maximum mortal level of 36, and beyond into immortality. It was also supported by a campaign world, referred to in the rules as the known world, into which these modules could easily fit, or be adapted for your own personal campaign worlds. So with all this support and potential for adventure, where do you start? Well, in old school Dungeons and Dragons, adventure design was a lot more episodic. You'd have a quest, which you might complete and go up a couple of levels when it was over. This meant the quest was finished. This is a far cry from the 10 to 15 level climbs of publications in the current 5th edition. The main benefit of shorter adventures allowed for meaningful downtime activity, such as leveling when it wasn't instant, training for weapon mastery, magical research, or dominion play at higher levels. A good DM might even facilitate enjoyable scenarios of you just hanging around the town awaiting your next adventure hook. What there wasn't was a constant drive to progress an overarching plot that just got bigger and bigger every time you took down a bad guy. The format had a much more relaxed feel to it and a sense of completion, so you could dip in and out of campaigns a lot more easily. So with this format in mind, I thought I'd share with you my preferred BECMI Adventure Path in supporting players to reach high-level play. Like I alluded to earlier, the connection between these is tenuous, but could be woven together should the need arise in your own games. I've put this list together to provoke discussion and for you to make your own suggestions in the comments, which I'm really excited to learn about. So without further ado, let's get this adventure path started. My preferred go-to module for starting a BECMI campaign is B2, Keep on the Borderlands. With its wilderness backdrop and that feeling of being miles from civilization, it's the perfect introduction to how Dungeons and Dragons works, for both DMs and players. I love how the keep acts as a safe haven from the caves of chaos, whilst also being an easy shoe-in for new characters needed after the demise of earlier ones. The caves of chaos is a fantastic environment as well, with its competing humanoids and darker secrets. There's the potential for characters to reach beyond 3rd level with this module if you complete it with a smaller party, but 3rd level is kind of where characters end up in the majority of times, usually with the odd low-level magical item among them. The next module for play is my favourite ever, B10 Night's Dark Terror. Although supposed to be for character levels 2 to 4, I have no problem with a character being level 3 at the beginning of this, purely because of the challenging start. I won't say any more on what this start is, but being level 3 gives characters more of a chance to move the plot along. Night's Dark Terror has a strong storyline, whilst offering numerous subplots and side quest encounters, and strong NPCs, all of which help build a history and picture of the land being explored, that being the Grand Duchy of Karameikos. Now, as I mentioned, this module is supposed to take characters up to 4th level, but I've not found that to be the case. In fact, my players got to 6th level when I ran this game, and the homestead it focused on at the beginning was starting to become a small village. By the end, the characters have revealed a lost secret and much treasure. They are hungry now for more adventure and potentially more danger. So after some rest and recuperation, my recommendation for the next module would be to jump into X4, Master of the Desert Nomads, part 1 of the Desert Nomads series, and an adventure for levels 6 to 9. The characters hear of a call to arms in response to an uprising of coordinated attacks by tribal nomads on civilized lands, and decide to answer that call. After realizing the true peril their lands are in, they are tasked with seeking a strange place far in the west called the Temple of Death, where it is thought these attacks are being coordinated from. There are many encounters and strange revelations along the way, some of which can be trusted, many of which cannot. The journey to the temple is an arduous one across the Sind Desert to find the Great Pass through the mountains. It is at this point that the players will start X5, the Temple of Death, for levels 6 to 10, part 2 of the Desert Nomad series. This module has the characters seeking and finding the Temple of Death itself, to confront its fearsome ruler and put an end to the Desert Nomad risings once and for all. Well, maybe, unless of course you decide to use X10, Red Arrow Black Shield, sometime in the future. Me? Well, no, I didn't do that because, frankly, my players were fed up with Desert Nomads. They were 11th level at this point and were starting to become interested in exploiting the BECMI rules for followers and strongholds. They were receiving rewards from grateful nobles, which consisted of land and responsibilities. Some characters took this opportunity up, some didn't. Regardless, it got to a point where they were all hungry for the road again, seeking adventure. So I decided to go with X7, the War Rafts of KRON, for levels 9 to 12. Sure, the characters were already 11th level, but this module offered an environment that was new to them, for it was largely an undersea scenario, offering rules for underwater combat and spell effects, and of course drowning rules. By 11th level, a lot of players feel like they've seen it all, so in X7 I was able to offer them something different and keep them interested. The enemies were still powerful, and the characters were always in jeopardy. This is BECMI after all. So gameplay remained cautious, and by the end the surviving characters had reached 13th level. They were genuine heroes and went back to their dominions, or homes, to recuperate, whilst I considered what the next scenario should be. Well, it didn't take me long to decide it should be CM1, the Test of the Warlords. Sure, it was suggested to be from level 15, but my group were seasoned players, and Test of the Warlords expanded the world beyond what they had been typically introduced to in the official publications. Set in the Northern Territory called Norwald, this was a game centred around Dominion play, a game where the characters could win land and swear fealty to a powerful king. There were many contests and contestants to overcome, and underneath it all, a seething subplot bubbling away under the surface. This is an exciting module, and the DM can really exercise their creative muscles and move many goalposts if it means improving the story. By the end, the characters might have a vested interest in a new dominion. What does this mean for any they already have? I don't know. You're the DM, work it out. That's more than half the fun. Whilst the characters are building territory in Norwald, they learn of a far-off barony that has not been heard of for some time, and are asked by the king to investigate. Written for levels 15 to 20, CM2, Death's Ride, is a veritable undead horde storyline, with a bit of mystery shoved in for good measure, as a strange death cloud tries to expand beyond the barony's borders. It's not exactly a sophisticated storyline, but it can be a fun one, and it's important to keep the fun going with high-level adventures. Because of the potential for entropic influence with Death's Ride, I'm inclined to continue this through strange omens and events which eventually cause the characters to jump right into CM6, Where Chaos Reigns, an adventure for levels 17 to 19. This is a fascinating scenario that sends the characters to a parallel world called Alos, where the characters enter a time when the humans and demi-humans are just developing their civilizations and cultures and learning the secrets of magic and other arts, but then encounter futuristic technologies and alien powers. This really is an adventure unlike any other in the BECMI series, and really plays on the potential for fantasy sci-fi crossover, again keeping the interest up in your players whilst expanding the richness of the playable multiverse. Where Chaos Reigns ends where it began, ensuring continuity with the ongoing campaign is not disturbed, unless you want it to be. My players' characters were level 22 and beyond at this stage, and wanting to get back to their dominions to ensure they were safe. This is the kind of in-between adventure play that is typical of BECMI, ensuring your political and economical interests are protected and continuing as you left them. Of course, a DM can only let this go on for so long before upsetting the apple cart, and I did this with CM3, Saber River, a proper dungeon crawl for high-level players. And if you ever wanted to know where the dragons were in Dungeons and Dragons, they're all here. Saber River pulls a character that rules a dominion into a quest to lift a curse, and that character, of course, pulls everyone else in. This game is a bit of a slog, but it can elicit some clever play in defeating some very powerful enemies, resulting in more land being awarded to them by the king. So by this time the characters were level 23 to 24, and I decided to spend some time consolidating their newly awarded lands. one or two players began to build small armies and dotted strongholds here and there with their newfound treasure, eyeing up neighbouring lands for conquest even. Because of this continued fealty to the king, they were summoned once more to deal with a troublesome barony in the neighbouring empire of Alphatia. This dragged them into M1 Into the Maelstrom, which built on the mass combat war machine in the companion rules and added a sea machine due to this module containing so many naval battles. In what seemed like a forerunner to Spelljammer, Into the Maelstrom had their characters transported into the void on their ships to be the instruments of the immortals. It's clear they were leaving the politics of their homelands behind for something much greater. As they navigated the seas, the stars, and the whims of the immortals, the possibilities of their own immortality began to form in their minds, and on conclusion of this module, this became the central theme for the rest of the campaign, which I homebrewed for the most part. This homebrew mostly consisted of further development of the Dominions aspect of BECMI play, as well as significant use of the war machine by ambitious players. Suffice to say, our version of the known world looks very different to how it looked when the characters took their first steps through the Caves of Chaos, shaped and sculpted by many hours of shared play and enjoyment. It's always a privilege to DM a BECMI campaign and see a player's face when they achieve their aims, be it a wizard's tower in the wilderness, a thieves' hideout in a craven village, a dwarven redoubt in the deep of the world, or indeed immortality and a life amongst the stars. Well, I hope you enjoyed this quick canter through my suggested BECMI Adventure Path, if I can call it that. If you play any other version of old school gaming, consider having a look. They're extremely easy to convert. Otherwise, let me know what your recommended adventure path might be. It would be great to know. I'm BECMI Berserker. Keep making your saving throws, and I hope to see you back here soon.